Recently in our field, there's been a lot more attention to vicarious traumatization, which is a great thing. It's really important that everyone knows about this, that we understand that it's inevitable in our field, it's our occupational hazard, and that it's also important that we look at what we can do in our personal lives to make sure that we have balance, joy, connection outside of work, that we keep track of the things that bring us pleasure and do them, that we take good care of ourselves. All these things are important. It is a little disconcerting sometimes, though, because sometimes it seems like an agency will say, we want you to have a caseload of 30, and actually you have to carry a few more because someone's out on maternity leave, and then you have to respond to all emergencies and be on call, and you definitely have to get your paperwork done. But we understand that this work is very hard, so please get a massage on the weekend and pay for it yourself. In other words, agencies may act as though the entire responsibility of preventing and responding to vicarious traumatization is on the individual. Yet there's a lot of things that the agency can do that will help their workers remain joyful and energized and hopeful in their work. The first thing is to train people and to have everyone know about vicarious trauma, what it is, how to recognize it, how it affects you, and give people a chance to acknowledge it and talk to each other about it. When we do this part in our training, this is the most powerful and important part of the training. People said, I thought I was the only one feeling this. People are so relieved to know that other people are feeling the same thing. And then the training and the vocabulary gives you a way to keep talking about it as work and life goes on. A key factor in fighting vicarious traumatization is supervision. This is probably the one most important thing you can do to maintain trauma-informed care and to help your employees stay engaged in the work. And this means supervision for all, not just clinicians, including direct care workers, supervisors, staff that man the front desk. Everyone needs regular supervision, and it needs to be honored as the agency as a priority, not something that can be easily rescheduled if anything else is going on, because something else is always going on. Also, the staffing has to be scheduled such that the person who's receiving supervision can get away from work. It is not supervision if you go up to someone when they're in the middle of their work and say, "Hi, Susie, how are you doing?" And they say, "Fine." That is not supervision. And it's also not supervision if you just talk to them when they've done something wrong, or when you have an administrative decree to tell them about. No, supervision is something that allows people to talk about their experience in the work, their experience with the clients, to talk about what's bothering them, to help them learn self-awareness, to develop clinical thinking, that is, thinking of what's happening behind the behavior. It also gives the supervisor a chance to notice when the worker is becoming cynical or hopeless or being negative, and see what's happening with them and what do they need, offers a chance to intervene. Supervision offers a connection, and polls by the Gallup Company show that people's sense of satisfaction at work is largely determined by their feelings about their direct supervisor and their team. So that connection that is built with a supervisor is crucial in maintaining workforce. It's a safe place, a quiet place, away from the moment-by-moment demands of the work, a time to think. We want our workers to start thinking differently about the clients, but how can they do that if they don't have time to think at all? It's a time to reflect on both what's happening with the clients and what's happening with ourselves. So we want to use trauma-informed principles in supervision. The parallel process is very strong. We want to supervise our workers in the same way we want our workers to react to the clients. We can't expect workers to have open-hearted, caring relationships with the clients if they feel blamed, unseen, uncared about. The relationship between the worker and their supervisor matters. Just as the relationship is a vehicle for the client's growth, the relationship is also the vehicle for the staff's growth. The supervisor has to operate from the stance that we are all doing the best we can. Yes, even the staff, even the adults. And that even the staff, when they're doing something that we don't like, that is adaptive. They are trying to solve a problem the best they can with the skills that they have. So if we approach problems that the staff have with that attitude, like, what problem were you trying to solve? What do you need? How can we make this a place where you can grow? That's much more powerful than a punitive approach. A punitive approach does not work for staff any more than it works for clients. And then within supervision, we understand that our relationships between us and our supervisees are influenced by the past of both of us, and that developing self-awareness is an essential role of what happens in supervision. The growth happens within the relationships, and we have to be open to discussing elements of the relationship. For example, racial differences. What racial oppression has the supervisee or the supervisor experienced? If they're of different races, how is that influencing the interactions between them? Can they talk about this? Can they bring up their different perspectives? If they can, and if they can both grow from that, that will be a tremendous model for how they can also do that with a client. Just as we say when working with the clients, we want to be collaborative, empower people to have a voice in their own lives, show caring and respect and compassion. It's the same with our supervisees. In other words, all of trauma-informed care applies equally to supervision. Another area that makes a big difference to helping staff with vicarious traumatization is the team and how the team functions. Can we have discussions in the team about what's really going on? Can we be honest with each other? Or do we divide into cliques where I talk to you about what's wrong with her, and she's meanwhile talking to her friends about what's wrong with me, and nothing ever gets solved? No, that's not what we want. We want a team in which we can have open discussions about what's happening, and also where we can talk about how it's affecting us as people. If someone gets hurt in the course of work, it's very important that the team members connect with that person, express their concern and sadness that that person was hurt. If there becomes tension between parts of the team, which there will, can we talk about it with compassion and respect, assuming that everyone is acting in the best interests of the work and they're doing the best they can? Assume good intentions. And what skills do people need? What do we need to be able to work together in a respectful way? Again, staff connections are the strongest determinant of job satisfaction and longevity. Turnover is a huge issue in our field, and we have to understand that what will help decrease turnover is creating staff connections and honoring staff connections. These things are not just frivolous or extras. They're the essential fabric that will allow the work to be done in the best possible way. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about people feeling safe with each other, being able to witness each other's pain. That is, having a team that you could talk to about a distressing thing you just went through with a client. A team that uses humor. We all know how important humor is to survive, and we'd rather sometimes that no one from outside hears the jokes we make. That supports each other, refills each other's energy. What else is part of a good functioning team? Energy, time, and money that is spent in creating a good functioning team will more than earn itself back by decreasing turnover. And then there's the question of racism. What in the team? Is there any racial divisions? Are there any aggressions taking place around racial issues? Are there different expectations of people based on race? And then the intersection of race and gender. Again, let's talk about it. Let's bring it out into the open. Let's give everyone a chance to have a voice and to explain what their experience in the team is, to share their experience of this team. We have a check sheet, which is in the handout section, that talks about people's experience of a team, and you could do a discussion by having people do that check sheet separately and then bring it back together to discuss, and bringing out differences that may be causing barriers between us. It's also possible to have regular scheduled VT groups, scheduled groups where the topic of the group is to talk about how the work is affecting us as people. Having something regularly scheduled like that you don't have to choose to go to, that's just part of what you do, or some places do have it that it's voluntary for whoever wants to go, but it's hard for us to admit that we are affected by the work, so including it in a regularly scheduled meeting like a team meeting, and having that be the first 15 minutes, the first half an hour once a month or something like that, makes it that people don't have to admit that the work is hurting them. They're drawn into a discussion. Of course, discussion is optional, and everyone could speak if they want to or not if they don't. But if you can get a regular discussion of how the work is affecting us going, then when something big happens, like an unplanned negative, horrifying discharge, or someone being hurt, or a new requirement from the outside that's making work really hard, we'll be in the habit of talking about our feelings, and it'll be easier for us to process the big events that happen. One way of having a smaller version of this is to have a debriefing at the end of shifts for congregate care settings. And of course, people do have debriefings anyway, but usually they concentrate on this kid did this kid did that. If there's a ritual in that to also talk about how each person in the meeting is doing, what it's been like for them, and also to share successes. And don't forget, those successes aren't just successes about the clients. We can be proud of how we acted, no matter what the clients did. We can only do the best we can. And if we were able to stay calm, for example, in a difficult situation, that's something to be proud of, however it worked out. Those are the kinds of things that can be shared at a shift change meeting, once you develop a tradition and a culture where you could do so. Rituals can be extremely important to providing hope and meaning to our work. We have one meeting that we start each time with everyone going around and saying a sign of health or strength. Another meeting has a different type of opening each time, but it's something about either sharing a personal experience or talking about hopeful things. Another possibility is to start with a mindfulness moment and a check-in. Have a few moments of quiet and breathing, or paying attention to sounds, or something like that, and then just go around and do a check-in, a couple words on how you are today without people asking questions or talking about it. Another ritual is just saying hello and goodbye to each other each time you get together. Rituals like this and many more, rituals for people's birthdays, rituals for holidays, all these things help create a sense of community. If possible, it's good to have staff retreats, and you can usually pull it off if you plan it enough in advance. And the retreat should not just be on creating a new policy for what to do if the kids won't brush their teeth. Instead, the retreat should contain liberal amounts of fun and getting to know each other and team building. Just that little game, you've probably heard of it, called two truths and a lie, where each person says 3 things about themselves, 2 of which are true and 1 of which isn't, and the others have to guess which one isn't. That's a way of getting to know each other. The more you make those kind of connections, the better you'll be able to work together in a crisis. And of course, have food, share food at the retreat. And also having celebrations, celebrating staff for special efforts, having just everyday fun activities like potluck lunches. One possibility is to have a small box in a staff office and have everyone, whenever they see someone doing something good, they put a note in the box about it. And then at staff meetings, you read them off. You may pull one for a small prize, but the main thing is reading them off and all staff hearing them. Sending a note to someone's personnel file, having bulletin boards where you put up recognition staff has received. There's many ways, and I would urge that you use ways that you can recognize anyone who's done something good, not that there's only one winner, like staff of the month, because for every one staff of the month, there's some large number of not staffs of the month. So having an expanding recognition program works better. Some places have formal structures to reach out to people when they've been through a particularly difficult thing, like a intense restraint or a community event that was scary or a bad discharge or something like that, where a crisis response team comprised of staff who've gotten special training reaches out to that person. And it has to be well promoted and part of the culture to have anyone use it. And you have to struggle with, is it automatic that these people talk to the person involved, or do they have to wait to be requested? It takes a while to get the culture going where people will use something like this. So you may want to have it be automatic, at least at first. Speaking of the culture, another thing that's important is what sort of messages do we give each other about whether we have to be there every minute and accessible every minute? For instance, if someone's leaving for the day, does someone else say to them, "Oh, are you abandoning us now?" If somebody says they're going on vacation, do the other people say, "How are we supposed to manage?" Or do we say, "Great, I'm glad you're taking a vacation"? Does any one person feel like the place will fall apart if they're not there? Or do all of us feel that the place will fall apart if one person is not there? If so, let's have that one person teach their skills to the others, because while it might feel good to that person to have everybody think they're the rock that holds the place together, it will work fine until they quit. Because if others don't have the skills, then how are they going to carry on? Share our skills and congratulate each other on taking time off. Supervisors, ask your staff if they've taken their vacation time. Become concerned if someone has not. And we also have to cope with the whole idea of calling each other and responding on off work hours. Some people are on call 24/7, which is pretty awful. Even if there is no formal on-call structure, now that we have all these electronic connections, people tend to call each other even when they're not at work to say, "This is happening, that's happening, what should we do?" And that's a good thing to talk about as a team. How do you want it to be? Just because you could always reach each other, do you want to? Or do you want to somehow protect each other's time off? Discuss it as a team. There's lots of other things to think about as you look around your environment. Is there too much noise? Can you add soothing music? How can you make the place more pleasant? Have decorations, have flowers. Can you implement a mindfulness system within the agency? Make sure you have a good EAP and your benefits cover therapy. Training is another way that keep people hopeful, keep people feeling like they're growing and developing. Then some of these things are sort of individual, but also require the agency. Can a person have different things that they do in a day, so they're not just doing the same work all day? That let's say they have a break to be on a committee or to teach someone else something, or to even have time to stop and think and talk. Of course, now more than ever, we have to stay home when we're sick, not think we're doing people a favor by going in anyway. And with ourselves, we just want to look at that we're not infinitely powerful with our clients. We're part of their healing journey. We're one little stage. And if we can teach them that this is a positive experience, maybe they'll do some work with us, and then maybe later they'll return to treatment at some later date in their life when they're ready to do the next stage. Try not to visualize your clients' stories too clearly or get them too much in your own head. Don't think that you're the whole thing the client has going. The client has a lot of strengths themselves, and they have a lot of other resources. It's not all up to you. And by being a therapist or a treater, you are giving the client a huge gift. You don't also have to give them money or find them a food bank. You find out what your actual role is and do that role really well. And then try to have some time in your life which you protect and in which work does not intrude. And all these things are better if you have someone you can talk them over with. Mindfulness, journaling, those all help for yourself and to be aware and to learn about yourself and how the work is affecting you. Being in our own therapy is a very important thing to do. You learn about yourself and you also learn about what it's like to be in therapy. Training can help us feel that we're growing and changing, and that makes a difference. All these things together, our personal efforts and the agency's efforts, can help us keep workers who are hopeful and engaged, connected to each other, and offering connection to the clients. Thank you.